When I was 19, I was broke, earning £500 a month and trying every get-rich-quick scheme under the sun. Today, I'm a 24-year-old business owner, feeling the best I ever have mentally and have a net worth of over £100,000. So in today's video, I'm going to show you 7 of the money rules that completely turned my life around to get me to where I am today. And I know not all money rules are practical, but that is what we're going to focus on today, so let's get into it. Rule number 1, using a credit card instead of a debit card. When I was 19, I was absolutely terrified of credit cards. I thought they would just completely ruin my life. I thought if I use one, I will get into debt and therefore spiral out of control. But what I didn't realize is that having a credit card, especially at a young age, and if you're trying to get onto the property ladder, is absolutely essential. Not only will it build your credit score, but you can also earn rewards and cash back for using a credit card exactly like your debit card. Although I will say that I don't think every person in the UK should have a credit card, because I think people with a tendency to overspend and have bad money habits will fall into debt if you have a credit card. So I think if you have great money habits, then looking into getting a credit card could be a great decision for you. But yeah, just keep that in mind. But for me, there are so many credit cards, especially in the UK right now, that offer amazing incentives for you to get started. Of course, make sure to not spend what you don't have, or make sure to not spend what you wouldn't spend anyway, but make sure you are taking advantages of these credit cards if you are looking to get one. Some of the best credit cards in the UK can offer cash back, they can offer rewards such as airport lounge visits, security fast track, they can offer you Avios points to spend on flights, hotels, charity, whatever you want to spend your money on. These credit card points can build up, and therefore you can use them for experiences that you wouldn't have been able to anyway. A top tip though, just remember to not spend money on this credit card just to get the points. If you're spending money that you don't have or that you weren't going to spend anyway, there is literally no point in getting these rewards, because you're just spending more than what you were going to spend if you had a debit card. Personally, I use my credit card for fixed expenses, ones that I can control, because if you start to use them for fun expenses, that is where the locus of control changes and you probably overspend and you can't really keep track of spending with fun money. Okay, so on to rule number 2. You need to know what the right accounts for you are to open. Some of the accounts we have available in the UK are actually amazing. Obviously, you will have a current account, but things like a high yield savings account, a stocks and shares ISA, a lifetime ISA, taking advantage of your workplace pension, using a SIP, all of these different things you need to look into. And I know this might be a bit of a boring admin task, but it is so worth it, and it is something that completely changed my life, because I didn't know about these accounts until I started researching about personal finance. And when you start doing that, you start to see doors that are open to everyone, but that everyone doesn't know about. A high yield savings account, for example, is just a normal savings account, but you're getting a higher interest rate, meaning your money is working more for you than if you were to just keep it in a normal current account savings account with 0 to 1% interest rate. It's them small wins that will take you above other people in the UK and ultimately build your wealth better than your peers. Another one that I bang on about all the time is a stocks and shares ISA. This is basically where you can invest up to £20,000 every single tax year, completely tax-free, meaning you can invest into things like stocks, ETFs, bonds, commodities, whatever it is that you want to invest in to build your wealth. A stocks and shares ISA allows you to do that. And if you were to invest just £200 in a global ETF with an average rate of return of 8%, you could potentially end up with £700,000 in retirement if you invested for 40 years. From £200 a month to almost £700,000, that is almost 5 times the average pension pot in the UK right now. This is the power of learning about the right accounts to use. And one that I kind of brushed over a minute ago, but is super essential, is a workplace pension. If you have an employer and you're over the age of 22, you should be automatically enrolled into your workplace pension scheme. And if you're under the age of 22, make sure to ask your employer to get you in this scheme as fast as possible, because essentially your employer is giving you free money on top of your salary to go into a separate account for your retirement. Essentially, how it would work is you would put 4% of your gross annual salary into this workplace pension scheme. The government would top it up with 1%, and your employer would match you at 3%. Essentially meaning you've got 8%, which 4 of that is not yours, going into a completely separate account, building your wealth for you. Okay, on to rule number 3, and this is super important. You need to track your income and your outgoings. So yes, this is budgeting, and unfortunately people think budgeting is restricting or it's boring, but I see it in a completely different light. I think budgeting is actually freeing and allows you to spend money on what you want to spend money on. You probably hear a lot of personal finance content creators saying that you need to budget every single penny and that every penny counts. And although I kind of get that to a degree if you're very low income, but I think there's a better way to budget, and that is tracking it in percentages. How I budget my money is I work in 3 separate percentages: fixed, future, and fun, the 3 Fs. So for fixed expenses, so things like rent, your mortgage, bills, your food shop, subscriptions, all the costs that stay the same, I try and stick between 50 to 60% of my take-home pay going on these things. For my future fund, so this is things like savings and investments, I try and put aside at least 10 to 20% of my take-home pay towards a high yield savings account, my stocks and shares ISA, my SIP, and any other investments. And for my fun money, you are going to be spending more than your savings and investments, so you can still enjoy your money, still waste it on stupid stuff, but you're spending 20 to 30% of your take-home pay on the fun things you love to do. For me, this has been the best way to budget my money because I don't feel restricted and I'm still spending money on things that I absolutely love to do. Now on to rule number 4, you need to create a life happens fund for 3 to 12 months of your living expenses depending on your employment type. If you're full-time employed, 3 to 6 months of living expenses saved in a high yield savings account for any emergencies should do you. Because you have that guaranteed paycheck every month, I recommend 3 to 6 months for full-time employees. But if you're self-employed or a freelancer, I recommend between 6 and 12 month emergency fund because life is unpredictable when you're self-employed, so having that extra bit of breathing room makes me feel more comfortable as a self-employed person. When I started learning about personal finance and I realized I didn't have an emergency fund, I threw everything at it. Any bit of little income I got here or there would go into my high yield savings account, an easy access account for my emergency fund. This is basically so if your boiler breaks and you own a home, that can be fixed. If your car breaks down, that can be fixed. If you have an accident on holiday, that can be paid for without you falling into debt. Because a lot of the country kind of wait for these things to happen and then go into debt for them. But if you prepare, set up a standing order to go into an easy access savings account for your emergency fund, you can be prepared before these things even happen. And also an emergency fund just helps you sleep better, honestly. When I started building an emergency fund, I had these savings set aside. I realized, wow, I'm actually comfortable now. I can sleep at night. If my job or employer started treating me poorly, I could quit on demand, basically. I didn't have to wait for the opportunity. I didn't have to wait until I had the funds. I could just leave whenever I wanted or whenever an opportunity came up. It's so freeing, honestly, guys. Don't take an emergency fund for granted. It's not just for emergencies, it's for opportunities as well. Rule number 5, and I started this, I wouldn't say late, but I started it when I was 21, and that is investing in the stock market. So that stocks and shares ISA I was talking about before, I started investing into one of them when I was 21 years old. I put £50 into the S&P 500 on Hargreaves Lansdown, and my investing journey had begun. This is around the time where I was getting familiar with personal finance content and realizing the importance of investing and not just saving, because unfortunately, you cannot save your way to wealth. With just saving money, you are probably earning at most 5% and sometimes only around 3%. But with investing into something like a globally diversified ETF, you can sometimes on average be making 7 to 8% per annum just from these investments. And of course, 7 to 8% isn't going to be the same every single year. It's not going to go up like a straight line, like a savings account. There will be years where you will make 21%, but then the next year you might make minus 5%. But on average, over the last 100 years, the stock market has returned on average 11%, so 8 to 7% adjusted for inflation. As an employee at the time, I just seen this as a way to kind of get out of the system, a way to save and invest for my future so it could be secure, but I could also be ahead of so many other people. Investing over time compounds, and the more you put in from a young age, the less that you have to do when you get older because of the power of compound interest. Compound interest is essentially just where your money grows on top of the money you've put in and the interest earned on that money, and it just carries on snowballing. The best way I can describe it is, say you put £100 into the stock market, you made a 10% return. That is £110 after 1 year of leaving £100 invested. The next year, if you add another 10%, that's £121. You can see what's happening here. It's gone from plus £10 to plus £11. Next year, plus 12, plus 40. It just keeps on doubling and snowballing the more you invest and contribute from your salary. Investing is honestly such a superpower, and if you can learn to do it correctly, not make silly decisions like buying individual stocks that you know nothing about and sticking to a simplified approach while avoiding the news, avoiding the hype, you will be in a very good spot when you are older. And that leads us nicely onto number 6, because in the last point, yes, you can get rich from investing in a long period of time, but if you're not earning a high income now, then maybe you can't enjoy your life to the fullest. So that is why I always say to learn a skill where you can increase your income and maybe have a side hustle on top of your 9 to 5 that can become your full-time job in the future. And honestly, this is not an easy path. For me, I tried businesses from 17 until today really, but it only really started taking off when I was 22 years of age, actually probably 23. So I tried businesses such as dropshipping, Forex, picking individual stocks, penny stocks, falling for MLMs, Ponzi schemes, the entire lot, until I found content creation with something I was passionate about. So if you can continue to increase your skills, look at content creation, look at videography, how can you add strings to your bow that could increase your income and you can earn money on top of your 9 to 5 to one day potentially earn more from that side hustle to become fully self-employed and take control of your time. Not only that, but have more freedom in your life. Being self-employed, yes, it's difficult, but you do have the freedom to do what you want when you want. You can travel when you want, wherever you want. And that is what I think a lot of people want in their life. And I know maybe some of this sounds proper red pill, like grind bro, work 11, 12 hours a day. But I genuinely think if you are willing to sacrifice just a year or two of your life and you put effort into something that you are passionate about and you create content about something you are passionate about, that could potentially be your full-time job in 1 to 2 years. Obviously that was my journey and that won't happen to everyone. It might take people longer. It took me about a year and 9 months to quit my full-time job and do this full-time. But that was sacrificing every single weekday evening to create content, edit the content, learn skills on how to be better with content. So it will take some sacrifice, but if you are willing to do that for a year or two, you are going to be so much more ahead than people your age. And like Ramit Sethi says, there is only a certain amount that you can cut back from your spending, but there is no limit on how much you can earn. So if you can earn more, that means your budget and the disposable income you have is going to be way more, and you can invest more, you can save more, and you can enjoy more of your money. And that moves us on to rule number 7, and that is having a portion of your take-home pay going towards guilt-free spending to prevent overspending. When I started budgeting and I was about a year in, I started to think, I've got all of this money sat in one current account and it's getting a bit messy. I don't really know where any of this is going. So I thought, let me split my fixed expenses, so things like rent, bills, mortgage, whatever, things that stay the same, to all of my fun expenses. So basically, I have one current account now for my fixed expenses and one current account for my fun expenses. The reason I did this is because when I had all of my money in one place, I was just overspending. I didn't really know what I truly had to spend. But then when I started budgeting, realized what I was bringing in, what was going out, I actually had a decent percentage of my income that could go towards these guilt-free things inside of another current account. And putting a percentage of my take-home pay in that current account in another bank really helped keep me to my word. I had that percentage of my income to spend, that amount of money to spend on guilt-free things, on whatever I want without feeling guilty, because I think a lot of overspending does come from guilt. It comes from a place of not being in the best mental state or just not being financially literate like I used to be. But now that I know exactly what I have to spend on the things I absolutely love to spend my money on, that makes me feel so much less guilty when I'm tapping my card when I'm out. And I think that is one of the biggest rules that has completely separated me from how I used to spend my money. I feel like I'm so much more structured now. I have direct debits, standing orders, and obviously this guilt-free portion of my budget where I can spend guilt-free on anything. So I really hope that some of you have taken something from today's video, and these 7 rules, even if it's just one, can be implemented into your life today. And I really hope it makes a difference, because my mission is to help the next generation get the financial education they deserve. So that is what I'm trying to do on this channel. So if you want more personal finance content just like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button, down below. I'm used to short form, down below, and I will see you in the next one.